Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Żaneta. Day 3 in Seoul started with perfect weather, sunny all day. Honestly, we couldn't have asked for a better day. Today's mission? Visit Gyeongbokgung Palace. But there is only one proper way to do that: wearing a hanbok. I rented mine from the Hanbok, which I had found through Facebook videos. It's right next to the subway station and only a few minutes walk from the palace, so the location couldn't have been better. Inside, there were dresses everywhere. Seriously, you could probably spend an hour just deciding what to wear. Me, I chose the easiest option, pink. Done. No overthinking. I was also slightly worried my husband and Adrian would get bored before we even made it outside, so I changed as quickly as possible, paid, and we were off. The rental cost 18,000 won for the whole day, which I thought was very reasonable. If you only need it for a short visit, there is also a 1-hour rental for 10,000 won. I also paid an extra 8,000 won to have my hair styled. The moment we stepped outside, everything suddenly felt different. It was like we had traveled back in time. Well, until the summer heat reminded me I was wearing layers of traditional clothing. Gyeongbokgung is the largest and most important of Seoul's 5 royal palaces. It was first built in 1395, and its name means something like "palace greatly blessed by heaven." Not a bad name for a royal palace. Although much of what we see today has been reconstructed after wars and the Japanese colonial period, it's still incredibly impressive. The palace is enormous. Wide courtyards, grand gates, beautiful pavilions. Everything was designed to show the power of the Joseon kings. Some of my favorite spots were Gwanghwamun Gate, the palace's impressive main entrance, Gyeongbokgung Hall, where the king held important ceremonies, Gyeongheru Pavilion, sitting beautifully above the water, and Gyeongbokgung Pavilion, which honestly looked like something from a fairy tale. The entire palace is also built according to traditional feng shui principles, with mountains behind it and the city stretching out in front. Walking through the palace in Hanbok made the whole experience feel so much more immersive. For a moment, I genuinely thought maybe I could be a princess. Although, judging by the heat, I probably wouldn't survive royal life for very long. If there is just one palace you have time to visit in Seoul, I would definitely recommend Gyeongbokgung. The first thing that surprised me was just how enormous it is. Every time I thought we had reached the end, there was another gate, another courtyard, another beautiful building waiting behind it. It honestly feels like a small city hidden behind palace walls. It's hard to believe you are standing right in the middle of one of Asia's biggest cities. What impressed me most wasn't just the beautiful buildings though. It was imagining how much history happened here. Kings ruled the country from this palace. Important ceremonies were held here, and foreign envoys were welcomed through these very gates. After leaving the palace, we walked over to Bukchon Hanok village. This is one of Seoul's best preserved traditional neighborhoods, filled with beautiful Hanok houses. The interesting thing is that people still live here today, so it isn't an open-air museum, it's an actual residential area. Hundreds of years ago, the neighborhood was home to wealthy aristocrats because of its location between the royal palaces. Today, it's one of Seoul's most photographed places, where traditional rooftops meet modern skyscrapers in the background. Wearing a hanbok for a few hours sounded like a fantastic idea. In reality, hot, heavy, beautiful, but definitely hotter than I had imagined. And I wasn't even wearing that many layers. Meanwhile, Adrian had reached the stage where every child eventually does on holiday. It's hot. I'm tired. How much longer? Let's just say, his enthusiasm for sightseeing was slowly disappearing. When we finally returned to Hanbok, changing back into normal clothes felt like winning the lottery. I could finally cool down again. For dinner, we found a very local Eel restaurant. The Ajuma didn't speak English, but she was incredibly kind and seemed to really like Adrian. The grilled eel came with countless side dishes and turned out to be one of the best meals of the trip. Although at nearly 100,000 won, it was also one of the most expensive. And, of course, we couldn't finish the day without trying the claw machines again. This time, we somehow ended up with a giant plush almost 1 meter long, almost the same size as Adrian. The funny part? It was another gift from a kind stranger. Thank you so much! At this point, our suitcase was filling up with plushes, and we still hadn't bought any proper souvenirs. Priorities, I guess. By the end of the day, we had to walk nearly 12 hours. We were tired, a little sunburned, carrying one giant plush toy we definitely hadn't planned for. But somehow, still excited for another day in Seoul. Tomorrow, the palace adventure continues.